Testing, can one of you check the lobby? Because when I go there, I kind of get kicked out.
Do what for the lobby?
See if there's anyone in the lobby.
Viewers.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Wendy Nicholson. I am with Equifax, and I lead the mergers and acquisitions planning and execution function. And today we're going to be talking about be prepared to be remembered when we're thinking about virtual interviewing and how we make sure that we make an impact. Today we have three panelists with us. We have Steve Clancy, we have Elise Bachman, and we have Engchi Zhu. So I'd like to sort of get started with, our focus being the need to encourage and teach women how to excel in interview by preparing an elevator pitch and selling your story, expressing the importance of what you do outside of work to be a better professional, and how to expand your network to be remembered. We'll start with sort of a little bio for each of our panelists. So welcome, Steve. So Steve Clancy has been with Georgia Pacific for over 25 years. He is currently the SVP and CIO, Chief Executive Officer for Georgia Pacific, and he leads the IT organization for one of the world's largest and the leading manufacturers and marketing of tissue, packaging, pulp, paper, cellulose, nonwovens, building products, and related chemicals. So Steve, that's a whole mouthful. The company employs more than 30,000 people in nearly 200 locations around the world. He assumed this role in 2017 and previously served as IT Vice President of IT, the packaging and cellulose segment. He was responsible for leading all of the IT organization for containerboard and craft paper, for corrugated packaging, bleached board, and cellulose, the businesses for 7 years. And he started his career in IT with Georgia Pacific as an IT manager in 1995. Prior to Georgia Pacific, he worked with Morton Thiokol, where he held positions of increasing IT leadership and responsibility. He's a member of the CIO Leadership Association and the CIO Strategy Exchange. And he is on the board of PAWS of Atlanta, one of the oldest non-kill animal shelters in Atlanta. He's been a sponsor for a WIT for a long time. He's secured Georgia Pacific as a corporate sponsor, hosted a number of WIT campus events and programs there, and volunteered his time for fundraising, as well as supporting a number of high potential women in his organization in development programs and leadership positions. He is educated at the University of the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts and received an MBA from the University of Southern New Hampshire. He and his wife, along with their 4 rescue dogs and cat, live in Atlanta. So welcome, Steve.
Wendy.
Next, we have Elise Brockman. As we said, Elise is also with Georgia Pacific, and she is Vice President of Corporate Capabilities. She's been with Georgia Pacific for almost 2 years. She improves the organizational results by driving mission-critical initiatives, effectively solutioning problems, and transforming organizations. Known for her ability to drive results and build highly capable, engaged teams, she's able to connect to business and technology strategies in order to meet and exceed desired business outcomes and to improve business bottom line results. She has extensive experience in collaborating with C-level executives and helping people and organizations navigate through their daily environments. She's recognized as a driven approach and has a driven approach to delivering technology and strategic solutions. Her career history includes senior executive experience in the financial services arena, along with leadership of large technology delivery organizations, conversion lagging technology platforms, key data and IT roles, and senior level operational roles. In addition to her career responsibilities, she maintains an active schedule of professional and common activities, focusing on her passion for veterans and animal rescue philanthropies. She is also on the board of PAWS, just as Steve is, and so as also a dog lover or animal lover, I applaud both of you for taking a leadership role in PAWS.
Thank you.
All right, and then last we have Anchi Zoe. Anchi is Vice President Enterprise Data Manager at Truist Bank. She is passionate about data science, professional development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. And she currently leads talent development for the data analytics community at Truist Bank, the sixth largest commercial bank in the U.S. As a part of her job, she manages 18-month rotational program, a data science accelerator program, as well as a 10-week summer internship program. So that's a whole lot, Anchi. I think that's impressive. She also leads a university partnership strategy for the data and analytics organizations at Truist. She supports learning and development for over 1,500 teammates and hosts an internal forum focusing on innovation and best practice sharing. Prior to her current role, she's had a career in quantitative analytics at Wells Fargo and Bank of America across corporate treasury, corporate investments, and risk management. Outside of work, Anchi is an active volunteer in her community, serving as a board member for the National Association of Asian American Professionals, the Atlanta chapter, and advocating for DEI and data science for community services. Anchi has volunteered with WIT since 2017 and served as a WIT campus manager for Emory from 2018 to 2019. She graduated from Georgia Institute of Technology with a Master of Science in Computational Science and Engineering, and obtained her bachelor's degree from Wake Forest University, double majoring in mathematical business and computer science. She enjoys cooking and hosting potlucks where guests can of all walks of life celebrate their similarities and differences over food. So that sounds like fun too, Anchi. I need to get more like you in terms of hosting events. So welcome, Anchi, as well. So I will dive on into our questions so we can give our audience a good flavor of thought about how we look at virtual interviewing and how to present yourself. So I'll start with the first question. And, this year of COVID has been very difficult. And, I was reading an HBR article, Harvard Business Review article, related to like the three things you need to do preparing for a virtual interview. And, they said, the pandemic has shown that anyone can work from anywhere, which means more competition, especially for those just entering the workforce. So I'll start with the question, and at least I'll punt it over to you. So when in an interview, we're often asked, tell me about yourself. This is a very broad question, but it can be, you can have a key component in selling your story. What advice would you give to better prepare for an answer to this question? So the question being, tell me about yourself in an interview.
Sure. I think the first thing you need to remember is they've at least read your bio. They've probably, perused your resume enough to where what they're not looking for is for you to repeat your resume. So what they're looking for is, I think, intellectual honesty. Don't answer something about, I think I enjoy working with teams, if you really don't enjoy working with teams. Talk about the things that are actually intellectually honest about who you are and try to connect them to something around the role that you're doing, or one or two of your three top skill sets. Really talk about stories, really resonate with people. So talk about something that you can tell an example around. But I think people tend to go down their resume or their bio, and that's, I think, a mistake because they've already got that. What they're trying to get out of you is, what are the one or two nuggets that you want them to hear? And I always try to combine it with what I think is a individual skill set that I have. For me, servant leadership is really important. So I might use an example of, I've gotten over my career, very passionate about building my teams and developing talent through servant leadership. Here's some examples. So try to connect a quality that not only you've been given feedback about, but that you actually enjoy. Don't try to tailor it exactly to what you think they want to hear. Focus on what is true to you and connect it to an example and or use case or some kind of a business outcome. And, stories are always helpful so that people can remember, but it's one or two things. It's not a regurgitation of your resume.
Thank you. See if there's anything you might want to add. Steve, can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Wendy. No, I agree. I agree with what Elise said. And, you also think about it in terms of, having your elevator speech ready. I think we'll talk a little bit about that later. but it's how do you take what Elise said, which was dead on, and do that in a quick 30, 60-second soundbite. And so I think we'll talk a little bit later about that, but that's the only thing I'd add to that.
Okay. Angie, anything from you?
Yeah, one thing I will mention is I know for example, Elise, your experience as an interviewer, a lot of time you're probably looking at people who are already in their career. Again, the executive search recruiter have vetted through a lot of resumes. But for a lot of the, for example, students entering the workforce or applying for an internship, there's so many, sometimes the interviewer is doing like 20 interviews in 1 week. They actually might not have had a chance to look through your resume. So it doesn't hurt, make no assumption that the interviewer already knows everything you've done. Just give them a couple highlights, focus on examples and results, just like Elise mentioned. Another thing I would recommend is, again, just do your homework and read about the company, the job description. Make sure your narrative is not generic. It really ties back in the company's value, what the hiring manager, what the team is looking for. Because a lot of that can be done just in like 30 minutes preparation. We see a lot of candidates are just giving a generic answer. Hey, this is me. You can ask me more questions later. That's something I would say from the very beginning. You can set yourself apart. Just my 2 cents.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. So we'll move on to, I know, Steve, you were very passionate about this one. So, interviews can be quite intimidating. What advice would you give to have better prepare for an interview?
Well, before I jump into that, I thought I'd explain why I'm sitting in my office here on a Saturday afternoon and not from my house. At about midnight last night, a gigantic tree fell in my neighborhood, knocked down a couple of poles, and so we don't have any power, so we don't have any internet. So I needed a plan B, and fortunately I had it. I could just come in the office and do it. But I think there's a interview prep sort of lesson in there too, isn't it? Right? You think about you're preparing for an interview. It's going to be virtual, right? Not mostly today. What would you do? What's your plan B if you wake up like me and say, I don't have any power, right? Better to have thought about it. Maybe you can phone a friend or a family member and not have to panic because you've already thought through, if this happens, this is what I'll do. So that's just one thing. So in terms of prepping for interview, I thought about maybe 4 things I'd share that hopefully will help some folks. Number one, and she just mentioned, do your homework. Do your homework on the company, on the industry, and on the people that are going to be interviewing you. There is a wealth of information you can find out there about a company's strategy, maybe their vision. You can learn about their culture and see, does that line up with what I like, what I believe? You can likely hear about or learn about opportunities and challenges that industry and that company's facing. And I think all that makes you a much more interesting candidate when you come in and you do your homework on that. With LinkedIn, there's all kinds of information about people. Know who you're going to interview with, see if they're on LinkedIn, see if you can learn anything about them. What are their passions? What do they like to do, right? And so just a prepared candidate that's done that comes across so much better than somebody that just hasn't taken any time to do any basic homework. All kinds of resources out there, websites. You can do Google searches, LinkedIn I mentioned, Glassdoor. That's another way to think about it. Hey, I want to learn, what do people say that work there? Is this a place I want to be part of? So again, prepare and do your homework. That's number one. Number two, be clear about what's important to you. What do you care about? What do you like? So it's different for everybody. For some people, it might be, what's the culture of the company? That's really important to me. Who am I working with? Maybe it's about interesting work. What's my day-to-day activity? What technologies will I get to work with? It could be about career advancement. And in this times with COVID, maybe flexibility is a key thing. So it's different for everybody, but it's important for you to know that before you go in. And have your questions ready, thoughtful questions, so that you can ask the interview panel or people and find out, does this line up with what's important to me? It's not going to work if that doesn't fit, right? So do your homework, understand what's important to you, and have questions ready. That's 1 and 2. Number 3, I'd say in today's world, and I think a lot of companies are doing this, is be prepared for a performance or behavioral-based interview. At Georgia Pacific, we call it situation, behavior, outcome, SBO type interview. And typically, you'll know this is happening to you when the person that's interviewing you says, tell me about a time when, right? It's tell me about a time when you had a difficult customer you had to deal with. Tell me about a time when you missed a deadline. Tell me about a time when you did an experiment that was successful. And so those are very probing questions that the interviewer is asking because they want to get to know you. They want to understand in certain situations, how do you think? How do you interact with other people? How do you get to problem solve? So there's a lot that we can unpack with these behavioral type questions. I'd be stunned if you went on an interview nowadays and a company didn't ask those kind of questions. And so the other thing I'd say is, so that tells me a lot, those kind of questions about critical thinking capabilities. Is this person a culture fit? Do they have respect? Do they treat other people well? Right? And so there's a lot you get from that on these interview questions. The other thing I'd say with this is be careful with the balance of I and we. I've had people come in on interviews and it's all, I the entire time. And it's like, red flags going off for me saying, boy, that doesn't feel like this person really works with the team. So it's always nice to say stuff about we, right? However, when you're in now this, what we call a performance-based or a situation, behavior, outcome phase of the interview, I want to know about you. So I want to hear that I. What did you do? I did this, right? So fight that tendency to just, it's all about we, because I've seen people do that in that section of the interview as well. Okay, so do your homework. Mm-hmm. Be clear about what's important and prepare for a performance-based interview. And I guess the fourth one, I'll just tell everybody, I know this is going to sound easy, just relax, okay? I know it's hard, but it's just an interview. And at the end of the day, for people in STEM or STEAM or whatever we call it, there's more job need than there are you, okay? So have fun with it, relax. If it doesn't work out, if it wasn't a fit for you or you don't get the offer, there's plenty more opportunity out there. I looked at a study from Deloitte the other day. By 2025, there'll be a need for another 3.5 million people in STEM. Mm. And we think that we're only going to be able to fill about 1.5 million of those. So we're already 2 million positions short. So what you do, your knowledge, your experience, your education, you're highly sought after in the market. So just relax, enjoy the interview. You'll find the right fit and the right opportunity when it comes along.
Great. Thank you so much. So tagging on to that, Elise, I mean, is there anything else you would add to Steve's for
No, I mean, he definitely hits you've got to make it a mix of demonstrated ability, but also getting to know you as a person. I know when I interview people, again, I'm really trying to make sure I get the right instincts about if it's a leader, what the leadership qualities that they're bringing to the table. So think about how you're going to demonstrate that, especially in a virtual conversation. Again, I always just go back to stories and examples are things people remember. And they're also easier for you to talk about. If you script something about, I got this award for this thing, that's great. It's probably on your resume as well. But I think there's more about the impact that whatever you got the award for that people remember. So I think it's easier to talk when you think in stories. You calm down, the nerves go down because you're more about, it's almost like sitting having a cup of coffee with somebody where you're relaxed. So be prepared, but think about how you're going to talk about these things so that it doesn't sound robotic and it also is genuine. You feel like you're actually having a good conversation with people, which will likely lead to more questions, mm-hmm. which means they're engaged, which is always a good sign in an interview. When your interviewer starts to ask additional questions about things that you talk about, that is always a good sign to me that they're interested, they're engaged in what we're talking about, and they're asking you more questions and diving in. So that to me is that relaxing part of it has to be around, try to think how you're going to talk about these things.
Gotcha. Yeah.
What's the most comfortable thing for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And Angie, I'd like to ask you that too, as you think about, and, just as Steve kind of mentioned, having your backup plan. So, just thoughts about, preparing, visually. So any thoughts from you there too, as you add on to the conversation about what else do you do to prepare?
Yeah, so I would say, again, my focus a little bit more on the kind of the junior positions, right? But a lot of time there's, I think, especially in today's environment, it affects a lot of people, right? Everybody, we go into an interview wanting a positive outcome out of it, and it is very intimidating. But a mindset shift that I recommend people to do is actually interview has two meanings, right? One, in Chinese, there are actually two, I'm Chinese, there are actually two words. One is 面试, which is the interview we're talking about, a job interview. Another one is 采访, means interview like a TV interview, like what Oprah Winfrey does, right? So if you think about interview as a exchange of views, right? Your viewpoints, you think about that going into the conversation, really makes an opportunity for you to learn about the company just as much for you to learn about the company as for the company to learn about you, right? Because we want to make sure it's a good match. I think that mindset will help a lot of the job seekers out there who are just really stressed out about the situation.
Right. Agreed. Thank you.
And I will say, I have a little bit of a funny story around the virtual environment. There is a second, so there's the Steve conversation of make sure you have a plan B. There's also make sure you understand what is in your background. This is the story, I don't know, a month ago, Christmas time, during the holidays, I had moved some things around because I had put decorations up. And I'd moved this plate, blue plate, and I'd moved it behind my office desk, and it looked great as far as when you walk in my office. But what I didn't realize is that it literally was right, and I have a big head to start with, so it's right behind my head, and it literally was perfectly framed. It looked like a blue halo around my head. And for like 2 days, nobody said anything. And finally, one of my teammates texted me a picture of what I looked like, and it was, first of all, hilarious. But second of all, I didn't even see it because think about, you see a little version of yourself in these things. You're not seeing the full screen version unless you either have somebody take a picture of you, get some feedback from friends, make sure you know what's in your background, because it really can be distracting, I mean, in my situation, it was funny and we now have a good story to tell, but in an interview, it might be distracting. So, have a little bit of a second thought around what's behind you and, just think about that before you get on camera. It is a little bit about the interview, as Angie was saying.
Yeah, and I think the lighting piece too, right? What's in front of you? I've seen too many people in where the light is directly behind them, and you see the silhouette, and almost looks like they're in the WIT protection program. So you don't want to be that person either, right? Think about that. And the other thing I'd say too, just for virtual, because it is a strange kind of new world we've all lived in here, is know the logistics. Right. If you've got multiple people, is it one Zoom link? Are they going to be multiples? What do you do if an interviewer is running late and you're holding up the other person? Like, you just got to think about these things, how you're going to react to that, which is something that's kind of new to all of us because we never interviewed like this until the COVID came.
Had to. A couple more kind of tactic things I want to call out is. Of course, you're going to prepare this as much as you'll prepare for in-person interview, but a couple minor tweaks, right? Definitely, like Steve mentioned, it doesn't hurt to just ask the recruiter or the hiring manager, hey, what is the call? What's the expectation for this interview? Is it going to be technical or behavioral? How should I address it? These are fair questions, right, to ask. It doesn't hurt. Worst case, they just don't reply to an email, right? Another thing is when you come to the interview, your posture, the tone of your voice will really matter in terms of making that impression. Earlier on in my career, someone literally told me, we can tell how young you are by how fast you speak. And if you know me personally, I go for like 150 miles an hour. So when I'm on camera, I intentionally slow down. I literally have a Post-it in front of me that says slow down. And I also speak at a volume that's about 110% of how I usually speak. Just so I have an accent as well, so others can understand me a little bit better, right? So these are things that comes with practice, and practice makes perfect. Just on the topic of practice, doing a virtual interview, there's a lot more from a technical interview perspective. Maybe code sharing or screen sharing, it can be very intimidating. Practice with your friends, get comfortable with the platforms, things like that. And when your interview wraps up, and this is another opportunity for you to, make an impression, is make sure you follow up. You'll be surprised how few people today do write a thank you note. And when you do follow up, don't just follow up for the sake of following up, right? You definitely want to express your gratitude, right? But also provide a quick summary of this is the things we talked about, and this is something that, food for thought. I'm going to think about a little bit more as I go on in this journey. And lastly, hey, even if this doesn't work out, it doesn't hurt to have a different connection in the field, right? Just make that follow up almost an opportunity for you to continue a conversation regardless of the outcome of the interview. So these are things that I've seen from a kind of tactic perspective that worked well. Lastly, one thing I do want to call out is do not cheat. in any shape or form. Just because we're not next to you, it is very easy for the interviewer to see whether you're on your phone, you are Googling, or just looking at your notes. It doesn't hurt. It's if you don't know the answer to a question, ask kind of on the other side interview, what we call probing question. Literally, the reason why you are having an interview with the interviewer is because we want to help you to get to the solution. We want to help you to see how we work together, in a realistic working environment, right? If you don't know the answer, tell them, hey, this is what I know. Am I on the right track? Can you give me some hints? Help me to get there, right? Make it conversational instead of going for trying to look up the answer on the internet. Just these are a couple other thoughts I had. Back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. I will say to you, as a person of color, and my office is kind of dark, and once we got to COVID and me working home more, that was something that I had to sort of go and invest in a camera, and that, not expensive, but something that helped sort of at least brighten my face, so you could see me better. So it's like you said, Steve, you're not looking like you've got the shadow behind you, and it's just sort of your head sort of there. But so for me, it was definitely thinking about that too, in terms of what I came across. And I will say too, one of the things that I've noticed, there's some people that are sort of averse to being on camera, right? And so for me, it is, I take sort of the cues of, and this is just day to day, the cues of my leadership as well. If I'm in a call with my CTO and he's on camera and he may be wearing a t-shirt or whatever, you should really think about that too, like just to make sure, and this is, not interviewing, but in terms of your day to day, that you actually think about, how you represent yourself on a day to day basis. So definitely see a lot of people who just say, I'm just going to be in my pajamas and, I can work from home. I don't need to really dress up or look. I mean, take the little bit of time to sort of look presentable. Like I say, it doesn't have to be like all fancy. Like I said, this was my most dressed up, since COVID, and really it's sort of the same, like a news person, just waist up is all good.
Be careful with that, because if something spills and you have to stand up and you have pajama bottoms on, it's happened. I mean,
I did my Apple Watch told me to stand up. My Apple Watch told me to stand up, and then I realized that I had on my yoga pants, and so that was interesting. All right, we'll move on to the next question. And guys, as you are adding your questions in the comments, I'm keeping track of those, and we'll add those to the end at our last 15 minutes. So appreciate it. Though some of them are very relevant to the conversation that we're talking about, so we'll get there. So I promise you. All right. So if I go into ways to better your professional life outside of your work environment, I'll start with Elise, because I know that you're very active outside of your day job. So tell us a little bit more about how do you do that and sort of incorporate that into who you are and presenting yourself.
Sure. So I think of three things as far as the opportunities that you have to kind of connect your professional life to your outside life. And again, I think this is also a personal thing. Some people like to keep work and personal extremely separate, and that is totally fine. If you are okay with the two, I think about opportunities around increasing your network, improving your skills actually, and then also you getting the other companies in the area. So to me, it's really important not only to leverage relationships outside of the office to network, but you also start to learn more about other companies and or other opportunities and or other training programs, leadership opportunities in Atlanta. So a couple ways to do that is pretty obvious. Connect your passions or your hobby to some opportunities in the business community. And that can look like anything like this. Like, I'm passionate about women in technology. So taking the time out on a Saturday to sit on a panel, participating in training sessions, participating in fundraisers where actually an organization that you have some passion around or a friend invites you to. You never know who you're going to meet at that. You might learn something about that organization that makes you want to get involved, that also connects to some leadership opportunity that allows you to develop a skill. So, allowing yourself to kind of get outside your comfort zone of your social circle and do volunteering, sitting on boards, sitting on leadership councils, things of that nature. Not only does that connect you networking wise, but it builds a muscle, right? It starts to build leadership skills and organizational skills and other things that you can bring back to your work life. I think volunteering, and not because I think everybody has to volunteer. I actually think the more you give, the more you get back, in my opinion. But when you do volunteer for organizations, you learn about the org, you meet people, again, opportunities for leadership. You go run a fundraiser for them. You go, the way I got involved with Pause is I got asked to come in and pitch some ideas about their 50th anniversary. I ended up chairing a committee of people that organized this massive event in Old Fourth Ward Park. And it was, and that's how I met a lot of people. And that's eventually how I ended up getting on their leadership council. And that's how I ended up getting on their board. So it's things like that that kind of can connect you. And I will say that the biggest thing that is meaningful to me about this question, and one of the reasons, and this is, I'm not making this up, outside of literally the first and second job I had in my career, every job that I have taken, I have networked through personal connections that I have met either through working and or through organizations. So I have never taken a job in my career after like my first or second job that wasn't brought to me more than I went and searched out, went out and looked for it, because I had these connections. And I'm not, I think networking feels really awkward if you think about it as a job. If you can connect it into these activities that you enjoy already, you're networking and it's not really work. Because I'm not the person that likes to go to 1,000 vendor dinners and network that way. I would much rather do something that I care about and then meet people through that and start to connect the dots about, oh, you got a data job over here. And every single job I've had, including this one, has been through networking and relationships that I've built over time.
Right.
So it's a huge value prop if you're willing to kind of mix your personal and your business life.
Awesome. Angie, would you like to contribute to that one?
Sure. And honestly, without volunteering, I wouldn't have gotten my job today. Coming from a technical individual contributor to, managing a team of 24 FTEs and 20 interns and supporting a big community. I just never thought somebody would pay me to do it. These are things that was always outside of work. And actually, a student who I used to mentor, she had a job with the Don't Trust Not Truth Bank, and put in a recommendation for me. That's how I, started this, this journey. And I know Elise and Steve are both, on the board for Pulse Amanda. My husband actually used to work at the Fulton County Animal Services, and I never. I know I'm allergic to cats. I never, had dogs growing up, and but I had no problem because he was working there, and I volunteer, 200-300 hours a year, bathing dogs, walking dogs, scrubbing the crates down. I have no problem doing that. Until 2 dogs later, and I found out I'm actually really allergic to dogs too. I had an asthma symptom, so I decided to no longer volunteer in the shelter anymore, but looking more at other skill-based volunteering. So such as participating in hackathons and using data science to solve social problems. Last year, I worked with our internship class on and a couple of the local nonprofit on how can we better understand COVID-19 vulnerabilities. What are the most vulnerable neighborhoods and professions in the 10 county metro Atlanta areas? We made recommendation to the Atlanta Regional Commission. Of course, I don't know if they actually made policy change based on it or not, but these are things that you can really, transform, would, connect what you do at your day job and make an impact in the community. And these are great resume builders, right? My interns had an opportunity to present at TAG, who's also, kind of the parent organization for WIT, the Technology Association of Georgia, with their data science analytics society, about the work that they did, right? So these are wonderful resume builders if you do a little bit more in the skill-based volunteering areas as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Steve, you want to add anything to that?
I think Elise and Angie covered it very, very well, and I don't want to add more to that. It just also feels good to get into a volunteer group that's a passion of yours that you love, like me with the dog and cat thing. Right. And it makes our community better too, right? So that's the other part. That it's not only, obviously you get stuff out of it, but it feels good to contribute and give back.
Agreed. I think that makes me more well-rounded and makes me too. That I have a passion for volunteering, and whether it's a pajama reading program that I'm down on the floor in teepees and circle time with elementary kids and reading stories, and I mean, I loved it. I got a big kick out of it. And, you know, my kids are older, and so I don't have that, you know, I don't have any grandchildren yet. So it's just great to kind of go volunteer in places that are, or mean something to you. So I totally agree, you know, whether that is pets or, you know, like, so reading to young children or contributing to homeless or whatever that is, but find your passion. I agree. And I think it just makes you more well-rounded. And for me, I like to share that, right, with my leadership when I come in. And if I have a new leader and I say, here's what makes me me and makes me, you know, more productive. Here are things that I like to do, and I find ways to do them within our corporation. So whether that's volunteering internally with our women's group or our African American group or our Black group, and we just, you know, so those are things that are meaningful to me too, that just make me a more better employee and then just more well-rounded. So definitely appreciate that too, Elise, in terms of how, you know, you think about work outside professional, you know, activities and outside of work, and how you kind of incorporate those and make those meaningful. So Steve, I'll start with the elevator pitch. So tell us a little bit about, you know, steps to preparing to creating your elevator pitch.
Yeah, I will. One of the things I was going to comment on, Wendy, too, that you said I thought was pretty cool was, you said, you know, when you have a new boss, you start talking about these other passions of yours. And I just think that that's such a cool thing for people to do, that, you know, you're a person outside of work too. You have interest in, you know, like with my team, I'm very interested in what happened over the weekend, you know, how, like, right. So bring yourself into the office, bring your non-work stuff there too. It's like part of this whole emotional intelligence. It makes you a better team. It connects to people. So anyways, I applaud you for doing that. I wanted to comment on that. So you were talking elevator pitch, right? Kind of how to think about an elevator pitch. And I know we talked about that earlier, and a couple of thoughts I had on that. One is, a really good elevator pitch ought to be about 30 seconds. And it's so hard to do, right? And that's, I think, the part I've seen people mess up the most. It's like, this is an elevator pitch, and I think we just took a 4-mile walk, you know? So it's hard to keep it brief. So about 30 seconds is perfect. It can be very helpful with the question you guys talked about at the beginning. Tell me about yourself. If you've got your 30-second elevator pitch nailed down, you can really nail that and be very impressive with people that are like, wow, this person knows what they're about. So some thoughts I had about what is in a successful elevator pitch. I came up with 3 things. Number 1, connect people to who you are and the people you help. Who you are and the people you help. Number 2, why are you passionate about what you do? And number 3, how does the current opportunity you're talking about in this interview relate to your goals and ambitions? And if you can do that in 30 seconds, first of all, that's damn good. But you really connect to the person you're talking to about, they know who you are, they know the kind of help you provide, they know why you're passionate, and they see what your job is that you're interviewing for connects to their ambitions. So one I was thinking about, so let's say I'm a project manager. You might say, hey, my name's Joe. I'm a project manager, and I help people get complex things done. And I'm passionate about getting that done and helping people do it on time and on budget so that they can meet their goals and be successful. And I read this job you have here, and I am so excited to be part of this team and be part of that big project you guys have. Cool, right? So that's not perfect, right? But that's sort of gives you the element of those 3 things, and it can be done in 30 seconds. The thing I'd say about it, though, is practice, practice, practice. Keep doing it. Do it with friends till they're sick of hearing about it from you. Do it on video so you can see yourself doing it. And the more you practice that, you'll have nailed that. And again, it's a very impressive icebreaker on an interview, on whether you're networking, when you can really successfully do that. That'd be my 2 cents on the elevator pitch. 30 seconds.
That was awesome. So I will just ask Steve another question. So, you know, how has it been for you if someone's giving you, being in your position, in your CIO, you know, what have you seen? Have you seen any positive or quicker things that sort of quickly, you know, stood out to you that went like, that's perfect, right? Versus someone sort of wasting your time in a way, right? Like you don't want to get to that place either. So what tips would you say too, if I'm coming up to you? And I know you've kind of given an example. So just thoughts about real life as to what you've experienced. Yeah,
more often than not, unfortunately, I see people, it goes too long, and they start almost like, I think Elise said at the beginning, it's like, wow, I wonder why I'm getting the entire resume read to me. And then 15 years ago, I'm like, okay, that really wasn't, you missed the mark. So I've had a few people that have it really nailed down, but I think it's a skill more people need to work on. We used to get the challenge here if Charles Koch, who owns all of our companies, if he were to stop you and say, what do you do for the company? Could you do that in 30 seconds, you know?
Right.
And that was good practice for me to start thinking, geez, what would I tell this guy in 30 seconds? You know, what do you do for the company? But again, I think it comes back to just, you got to practice it. Remember those 3 things. And if you can get that in about a 30-second message, you'll be pretty successful.
Perfect. Thank you. Angie, do you have anything to add to that?
Just the name of the session is Be Ready to Be Remembered. I might share like a little bit of a unpopular opinion. Sometimes, especially in today's environment, you want to be a little bit cliche to be memorable sometimes. Recently, we did a roundtable event with one of the university partners. We have 20 students come up, do round robins. Honestly, I only remembered 1 student, because that student, you say, you can remember me using 3 Fs. This person's last name starts with F, and he's from Florida, loves the big sports fan, loves football, and and these are things that make them so memorable, right? So of course you have the 30-second version, but also if you have a 5-second, 10-second version for people to remember that tagline, what does that look like, right? It's outside work, people, data science, professional development, diversity, equity, inclusion. These are the brands for AMSHI. At work, I tell people I work in the TLC of analytics, talent, learning, and community. I guarantee that people will remember if you have something that's very concise and, for people to be remembered, right? If the goal is that. And of course, you got to balance that being, too funny or being appropriate for work. But that's just my 2 cents. I think it's helped me tremendously in a like this.
Awesome.
One tip or that either video yourself is super helpful, because we've had to do some videos internally at GP in this environment. And when I say I spent like 6 hours just trying to get a 3-minute video or 2-minute video. It's way harder than you think. So it is prepare. But the other, if you're a dog person, take your dog everybody takes dogs to a dog park. That's a 30-second conversation. Like you can practice your, because you're basically down there, dogs don't hang out for more than 30 seconds. So you're a complete stranger and you're sitting there and it's a little awkward because your dogs are smelling each other and it's a little uncomfortable, but you have 30 seconds to just do your elevator pitch with a complete stranger, and you will have 10 of them because you're at a dog. I mean, it's a really great like live environment, and people might think, okay, she's out here networking, but who cares? I mean, like it's a really great environment to kind of practice with complete strangers and see what you got.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. All right, I'm gonna go on with our sort of the next topic on how do you network, how do you expand your network, especially since you're in a virtual setting, and then I'll go into the questions. But I think we're so passionate that we're almost at time, you guys. So Angie, I'll start with you in terms of networking. What are good ways to expand your professional network? Now that we're in a more virtual setting.
I would say another question, is more around how do we expand your network. That's the first thing, we talk about networking. So, you go to a conference, you meet somebody you never met before, and you look over people's shoulders to see if there's anybody more important in the room, right? That's not what we're talking about today. I think in order to network, you got to start looking to reconnect with those, deepen the relationship you already have, right? Instead of going out and meet more people, right? You can learn so much about people who have, maybe classmates who started at the same place you are. Maybe you've gone on different journeys. It's the perfect time to reconnect. You might have that mentor that just, have thought of a priority, right, to reconnect. You make that a goal. Actually, on my planner here, I had in January of this year, I want to connect with 10 people that I haven't talked to in the last year or two, and I was able to do that and learn so much from their journey, what their the good and bad and ugly, and and really that creates a sense of belonging and knowing that you're not on this journey together, in this virtual world, right? So I would say, reconnect with the people already in your network and strengthen your network before go out and expand it. Most of my growth of my network is through LinkedIn, and I take a lot of you know, I put a lot of time and energy, and also I really nurture my network. I'm not one of those who open up for everyone to add me, right? And I want to make sure that in this relationship, there's something I can offer, or, you know, I wanted this to be a mutually beneficial relationship. But totally understand that not everyone is as comfortable with social media. You know, sometimes we just need that time to unplug, and really, really, you know, respect that. But, you know, I found LinkedIn's been a great platform, but to make sure that you always have your why, right? Why am I making this connection? Why do I want to reconnect with you? You'd be surprised how many people connected with us on LinkedIn, but never even had a follow up, right? Or started asking for you know, a referral or something the first time that we had just met, right? So I don't think these are way, you know, conversation starters. So, you know, take the time to think about how do you build up that relationship, right? And a quote that I really love is change happens at the speed of trust. How do you develop that trust with people in your network, with the strangers, right? It really takes time. And, you know, I would say, just like how you want to be treated by others, treat people on your virtual platform just like that. One last piece here is really start with a safe place where everybody is there for the same reason or similar reasons, right? Women Technology, this is a wonderful platform for you to meet with other similarly minded people who are, you know, either women or allies who are, you know, really invested in, you know, propelling the career success of women and girls at different stages of their career, right? Join a Toastmaster club. You know, I used to be someone who really struggled with public speaking or just speaking English as second language in general. You know, these are nobody's there to judge you. They're all there to watch you to be successful. So find your safe place and start small, and your community will, you know, lift you in, empower you in this process.
Perfect. Thank you. Elise, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and this is probably, I think it's important for men as well, but as a woman, the other thing you have to be a little careful of is, because it is social media, there's a safety issue as well that you should always keep in mind as you're networking and you're connecting with people. So again, I think Anshi's point of, you know, don't just connect with anybody. It's not like you're Kim Kardashian trying to get the most followers. I mean, that's not the goal. Right. The goal is to get meaningful connections. So there's some safety things you want to think about. I mean, you know, displaying things that might tell people where you live when you don't know them, that's probably not a good idea. So, you know, you got to remember, sometimes people let their guard down in virtual environments because they feel safer than they really are, because you're sharing information and there are predators out there. So the other thing is just, you know, be aware that you can give away clues about yourself in a way that you need to know who you're talking to, and you need to feel safe with that conversation, and just be a little bit cautious, because it's a lot of, we're learning every day about the wonderful things about media and digital technology and social media, and then the things that we really need to figure out as a society. So that's another lens there that I would want you to think about.
Yeah. And I will say too, that recently I actually did almost like a network audit, right? Like basically who's in my network and who do I want to connect with, and then how should I, right? And so more of what's professional or strategic or, you know, personal. Just trying to sort of figure out how I want to do that and be purposeful for it. I mean, I honestly just kind of like at you, Angie, you know, I am very close knit with my high school classmates, and I hosted like a virtual happy hour with my high school, classmates, recently. Happy New Year, right? Just things that I wanted to sort of reconnect, and especially since we're virtual, we don't have the opportunity, COVID, we don't have the opportunity to get together. So how can we do some of that and sort of stay connected? So same thing with professional, having coffee, right? Like virtual coffee or what have you. Also virtual kind of happy hour, whatever that thing is, but trying to sort of stay connected. So thank you for that. All right, I need to jump into our questions, and I know we're getting close to time. So the first question we had was, when you're asking about company culture in an interview, are there any questions you would recommend or discourage? So Steve, any thoughts about culture questions?
Well, I think first of all, you ought to go in knowing what that is, because that information is typically out there, right? And so, figure out, number one, does that align with what you believe? Because if it doesn't, there's no point going on the interview, right? If the cultures don't line up.
Right.
But I guess the thing I would I would poke at in an interview on culture is, assuming you read it and you're like, well, that sounds good to me, is do they actually follow it, right? I've seen so many times where companies talk about integrity and respect and, all this, it's great, right? And it's all over the walls and everything, but they don't follow that. It turns out,
Right.
so that's what I would poke at, is to ask questions that help you see how real is that culture. How are you being treated in the interview, right? Observe how people around you are being treated, right? I mean, so all this stuff are clues to tell you whether what looks good on paper is actually being enacted when you get there. That would be my big advice for folks.
Thank you. All right. I had the next question is, like, when you're doing a Zoom interview, is it better to take notes on the notepad or on the computer? I don't want to appear that I'm not paying attention. What are your thoughts? And for me, I would start with, I might be taking notes. I think I would start with saying such, like whatever makes the most sense for you, but you need to be present. So Elise, what do you think?
I think it's whatever you're most comfortable with. I, quite frankly, have the worst handwriting on the face of the earth. So if I don't take notes electronically, they're useless. But usually when I do that, because I've probably got a separate screen here, I will let them. I do this in meetings, so I don't just do this in interviews. I'm interviewing, so I'll be like, I'm taking a couple notes. I don't want you to think I'm multitasking. But at the end of the day, again, this is hard for me because I'm a talker more than a listener. Listening in interviews is very important. So notes are important if there's like a data point that you really want to remember, or he says something that you want to come back and ask a question. But I would discourage the land of 1,000 notes. I would be more engaged in the conversation, because that's where they're going to get a sense of who you are, which is really important. For me, that's what I look for when I'm hiring people. So not that you can't. If you do, I would let them know. Do whatever medium is most comfortable, but don't make it all about taking notes. Listen, and you will come across as engaged. You can lose yourself in that if you're taking notes too much. So
what do you think?
What
do you think, Steve? I'm sure you've seen lots of it.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of generational stuff you got to be careful of here too, right? You got an how should I say, an older person like myself, right, who might think, well, why aren't they paying attention to me? Yet I see people in their mid-20s who, if they're not doing 7 things at the same time, they don't know how to think, right? So I just think you understand who you're interviewing with and say, and maybe that person might not be into multitasking like I am, so maybe quiet that down. So I think it just depends on the situation and who you're talking to. That's just my observation as one of the old guys,
Yep, I hear you. I like to be present as well. And if I get to that place where I feel like I need to take a note, I'm like, do you mind if I take a couple of notes? And, I'm here, but definitely put it out there. All right, great. So I'm going to ask Anchi this one. How would you suggest telling your story if you have little work experience? And I know you deal with a lot of, interns and younger professionals. So thoughts there?
Yeah, anything counts, whether it's a class project, you took a certificate, we just talk about community service, volunteerism, a research that you've done, right? You're part of a student organization or another professional organization, part of a sorority, fraternity, what have you done? Really focus on the result and the skill that you learn in this process, whether you learn about statistics, you learn about, developing a predictive model, or you can influencing without authority through, kind of being the volunteer coordinator to sorority, something like that, right? You've done this research that's not required for your curriculum, but you've gone above and beyond that, challenge yourself intellectually by pushing that, knowledge frontier. These are all, great things to add to your resume. At the same time, during the interview, focus on what are you trying to get out of this experience. There's something I tell not just students, but everyone, you should never apply for a job that you're 100% qualified for, right? Otherwise you're not stretching, you're not learning. If you go in with maybe 50 to 70% that you've done it, you have some solid foundation, right? This is what I know really well. This is where I had the exposure to, and I've seen growth in this area. I want to do more of it because I love it. And then this other area, I've never done it, but this is exactly why this opportunity is so interesting to me. Even though I don't have the experience, I have seen I have a proven track record of a growth mindset and intellectual curiosity. I'm able to take this position to the next level, and that's how you tell your story. Even you have very little work experience under your belt.
Gotcha. Great, thank you. I will ask one more question, and then I'm gonna probably let you guys do final thoughts. And I know that we've got a lot of questions here. So, but one that kind of stands out right now is, any advice on how to handle the fact that you were laid off from your last job, what to say and what not to say. So thoughts there, Steve? You want to try and take that one?
Yeah, in terms of shame with layoffs, I think if COVID taught us anything, there's none of that. I mean, look what happened to people in airlines and hotels and restaurants. And so I think that stigma is not anything to be concerned about. I always go back to just be honest, hey, we got a layoff. Why did it happen? Maybe it was business related and share some of that. But I would quickly pivot to if I were being asked that question in an interview, I would give an honest answer. And then I would quickly pivot to how excited I am about the future and the opportunity with the company I'm talking to right now. So you're not dwelling in the past. They shouldn't dwell in the past. And you kind of move forward like that. But I think, with 20 million, 25 million people initially laid off, I mean, a lot of people are in that position right now and finding their way back into the workforce.
Great, thank you. There was Jason. You have a very Jason L has a very packed question there, and it is pretty detailed. Jason, we might have to take that one offline. And he's definitely concerned about entry-level position and sort of being able to, I guess, have sort of an honest posting and/or details about the pay, about the position. I think there's more to that, Jason, in terms of when you're looking for a job and you're trying to get your foot in the door. So Angie, any feedback there for him just to talk about, how do you get your foot in the door and feel like, comfortable that what you're being presented with or as a position, is sort of honest. And maybe it's more to that, but any thoughts there too, in terms of being an entry-level person trying to get your foot in the door and feeling like comfortable?
Again, I would say you should really have a lot of pride in what you are bringing into this world. Like Steve mentioned, there's so many more jobs that you guys out there that we need to fill, right? And I would say I would probably miss part. It's a very packed question. I probably miss part of it, but also I think that confidence, that mindset, and then the storytelling is absolutely important, right? And then I know that one challenge today, just with the, how do I put it, on the compensation piece, again, I don't want to speak on this really on behalf of my company, right? I would not tell, because how passionate I am with the DI in the technology space, I would never tell anyone that you should leave money on the table or take a job that's less than you are, right? So I still think if you have the knowledge and the and the experience and and really show that this is something that you can do even as a student, right? Even you've never really have work experience, but you've done these other things that nobody asked you to do, but you've gone above and beyond, and you can bring that to the workforce. This is very highly sought after, skills and certificate or not, right? Be confident in that and don't have to just take whatever is presented to you up front. That would be my other advice.
I saw Jason's question too, and I thought it was kind of interesting. The other thing I'd say on that is, we hire lots of people out of school, and they come in at entry level type rates. But it's amazing with 2 to 3 years experience, how much more of a premium they now demand for what they do. So those entry levels are tough, and you kind of get to get into that first couple of years. But it is amazing with technical skill in particular, how much more valuable it is in the market after a short 2 to 3 years. And it makes a huge difference. So, but if Jason, if you want to take that offline, we can connect and we can chat about what's going on.
I was thinking the same thing. If you'd like to, connect offline, LinkedIn is there. You can find all of us on there. So we'll look there too. Quick last word, Elise, last word from you.
One, I just think it shows for the folks that are on the call this Saturday afternoon. So I appreciate being invited. Thank you. I enjoyed the discussion. But for the folks participating, this is the kind of stuff that you, especially if you're new to the job market, these are great opportunities. It's an hour of your day. You might meet somebody through it, again, from a networking perspective, but I would encourage you to continue to look for these types of forums and connections, because it's a little bit of how you learn. And ideally, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like a good cup of coffee with some folks that you learned. If you took one or two things away from it, then it's worth an hour. So thank you for including me. I really enjoyed it.
30 seconds.
Sure. My last comment here is, I know you guys are looking for a job. That's why you are here. But even if you got your job, make sure you pay forward, right? Help others. And also another thing is a lot of companies are looking at talent very differently, right? Instead of always going to the job market to buy, we also want to see internally how we identify, that high potential individuals and be able to, again, propel them to the next level, right? So have this discussion even when you have a job that you love, but ask around, how can I get on a stretch assignment? Discuss these things with your manager and keep this curiosity even when you're not in a job search mode. That would be my last comment here. Thank you so much for the opportunity as well.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, just Wendy, thank you for hosting this today. Fantastic job. Thank you for putting this on. And as Elise said, everybody, kudos to you for taking some of your time to meet others and learn. And hey, wish me luck getting home, and hopefully my power's back on.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much. I said, be prepared to be remembered. You guys, WIT has lots of volunteer opportunities, great networking. So find your passion, find something else to give back to, and get some, mentoring as you may think about that too. So appreciate all of your time today. Thank you so much. Happy Saturday. And, I'm going to say go Chiefs tomorrow. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Thanks, Wendy.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right.